It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? I'm sure that many of you recognize these words of introduction as part of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Mr. Rogers would have liked St. Paul's. We really care about our neighbors. We go above and beyond for our neighbors, even the ones that we can't name by name and we don't know personally. All of our ministries focus on caring for our neighbors in some way, especially, just to name a few, MOP, Be Safe, Social Justice Ministries, Greeters, GBIO, our hosting of musical ensembles, and even the yard sale, which is not only just for our benefit, but at a time of year when new students come into town and need to have access to affordable furniture and household goods so they can live in this neighborhood. On a more personal note, I've never preached at St. Paul's before, so I'm very grateful for this privilege. And I don't know where my ministry will take me, so I don't know how many times I'll be able to preach here in the near future. But I have felt your love for me. I am your neighbor too. From the first day that I walked in the door, I felt neighborly love and the dedicated support that you offered me as a parishioner in discernment and then as a postulate and a candidate. Knowing that I was in your prayers weekly meant the world to me. I don't even have proper words to articulate the power of knowing that this whole community held me in prayer during the process of being ordained from start to finish. So thank you. I can say with certainty that St. Paul's had by far the largest parish representation at my diaconate ordination on June 7th. Far more neighbors than any other sponsoring parish. I'm grateful and proud and in awe of the generosity of our parish. And most recently, a huge thanks is due to so many neighbors who have delivered food and support and continue to do so since my daughter was born 6 weeks ago. I even had a Diocesan Pride Queerly Beloved t-shirt delivered by hand to my hospital room, which was a clear act of love. And this parish is a gift, and I'm so grateful, so thank you. We are all neighbors, not just here at St. Paul's or in Brookline or in Massachusetts, but beyond this, wherever we go, we are surrounded by neighbors, some known and some unknown. In today's gospel, the word neighbor refers to those who are loved by God and are worthy of God's love. That is everyone. This parable shows that everyone is worthy of God's love and care, not just those who are part of a specific class, faith tradition, culture, or income bracket, but everyone with no exceptions. In Jesus' time, a Samaritan was someone who was known not to follow the Jewish law and did not get along with Jewish people. The Samaritans were not a community that Jewish people associated with or trusted, so it was totally unexpected that someone the Jewish community rejected and looked down upon was the one who came to the aid of the person who was suffering in the ditch. The even greater contrast in this story is that the unexpected person came to take care of the dying person when the priest and the Levites were a priestly tribe in Israel, just walked right by and ignored the suffering person. This parable demonstrates that everyone is worthy to be under the umbrella of God's love, and everyone is able to give and show love regardless of class or belief or assumptions. And sometimes it's the people that we expect, like clergy, ours excluded, who do not extend love to a suffering person in the street. And that does not mean that we need to follow that example. We are called to love our neighbors no matter what, even if the neighbor is a stranger who cannot repay you. We love them anyway. I believe that Jesus welcomed everyone and never turned anyone away. Jesus cared for all neighbors, especially the ones who were looked down upon in his time, like people with physical imperfections, outcasts, and tax collectors. Today, I bet Jesus would spend a lot of time with people who are imprisoned, the unhoused, people with special needs, people who live in fear of being deported, and most especially our LGBTQIA+ siblings and allies who are now more afraid than they have been in the past. Jesus was about including and caring for everyone. We expanded his table to welcome all. At a Passover Seder, the Last Supper, Jesus said to his neighbors, "Take and eat. This is my body given for you. Jesus' invitation does not have an asterisk with exceptions. Given for you, this you means for all and for everyone, no matter what. In our gospel today, the phrase that really stays with me is go and do likewise. It's how our gospel ends. Go and do likewise, meaning the good news is that we are invited to care for the people who are vulnerable and unable to care for themselves, even though we might not know them. These vulnerable people are our neighbors and our siblings. When I reflect on this parable, I always like to think that I would be like the Samaritan in this situation, and I would stop to care for someone that I passed by on the street. Then I remember the number of people that I passed by just in Boston going on my way to work from the train station, and I realized there are countless people who are sick and suffering that I walk right by. Maybe we all do this, and maybe I need to stop, and maybe I need to care for them. I can at least acknowledge that they exist, and instead of ignoring them, I could find someone to help them if I can't do it myself. Further, this is someone who's visibly suffering. I wonder if the invitation from the gospel today to go and do likewise does not just mean for someone physically suffering, but to care for our neighbors who might need care even if we don't know them and even if we can't see their wounds. There's so many wounds that we can't see, and regardless of who they might be. I'm wondering how I can add to my already demanding life the care for a stranger in the street. I struggle with this invitation, and maybe I'm not alone with this invitation and struggling. The good news is not supposed to be comfortable or easy. Our gospel calls us to do things that are uncomfortable sometimes. And I also believe that God calls each of us to respond in our own way to the call of go and do likewise. We need people who literally will stop and care for someone in the street. We also need people who can be in the hospital to help this person heal. We need someone to cook for them. We need someone to pray for them. We need someone to create laws that allow them to be cared for in the hospital. And we need someone to create music for them. We are all part of this, and we all have a role to play in caring for each other and caring for our neighbors, and we all each have unique gifts. Although the gospel invitation is a challenge, it's not intended to be impossible. The gospel challenge is also not meant to leave us in a position where we cannot care for ourselves. In our gospel today, we also hear that we must love our neighbors as ourselves. This implies that we love and care for ourselves. This implies that caring for our neighbors does not mean that we neglect the care for ourselves and our families. Go and do likewise, caring for our neighbors, will look different to each of us. We all have different gifts to offer the world, and in different ways that we serve our neighbors. What is the way that you serve? What are your gifts to offer? How has God called you to love your neighbor? May we all have the courage to answer the call from Jesus to love our neighbors as ourselves and go and do likewise, to care for the neighbors among us. May we know that everyone is worthy of God's love and no one is excluded. And may we all embody God's love and share it in abundance with all of our neighbors. Amen.